Where is that now?
Hey, Steve.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey.
Let's see, let's just... Hello? Hello?
Hey, can you hear us? Hey, Steve, I was telling June yesterday, I was telling her how influential you were, how formative you were to our careers, because it was through you that the Afiara Quartet had its first paid gig at the San Jose Chamber Music Society. Do you remember this?
Oh my goodness, that was a good show. Yeah.
Head Lorraine said he heard us because the Kronos Quartet, also friends of yours, had us. They won the Lifetime Achievement Award at Chamber Music America, and they had us go and play there in their stead. Right? They're supposed to play in a ceremony. One we get the Afiaras, blah blah blah. We played, and then Ted Lorraine heard us there, and he said, "I really like you. We would book you, but the Afiaras probably would get like 2 people in the audience. We need a big star to agree to play with you." And I think Steve Prutsman is a nice enough guy. He might give you a chance. So you showed up at the San Francisco State University, and we were this crazy quartet just throwing piano quintets on the piano. We read through Dvorak, Schumann, Brahms, everything. And then we threw a Charles Ives piano quintet in front of you. Halloween, I think it was called. And you just sight read that thing and tore it up. It was so much fun. And then you said, you know what? I'll give you your first gig. And then we ended up playing. Come on. No, you really, it's such a true thing. And what I said to June yesterday, when we were talking about speaking with you today, was that, do you remember we finished playing the Dvorak piano quintet and everybody started clapping. They were standing on their feet, right? And we went off for the curtain call, and we were going to dutifully just come back on stage. But what you said was, oh, hang on. Don't go yet. Just give it a couple of seconds. And so we stayed there, and then everybody still clapped. And then you go, now. So we went out there together, and then they roared, because I think that you had created the expectation. You're such a great conductor in that way. And you created expectation. Are they going to come back out? And we came out. That was our first big lesson outside of all the musical lessons you had given us in our rehearsals. So here it is. Steve Prutsman, not only is he an incredible pianist playing all types of music and a composer, which we're going to talk about today, he's also an incredible conductor of not just orchestras, but of young string quartet ensembles on when they should go out for a curtain call.
Wow.
My man, Steve Prutsman.
Wow. What an intro. Wow. Adrian, that's too much. That's too much, man. I'm going to have to take you out to a 7-course dinner or something. Boy, that was pretty good.
Steve, I have a personal story too. Steve is a very humble guy. And I asked him at one of the Stanford seminars, I was playing this piece, a trio, one of the Dvorak trios, and I was way over my head. I played with Chris Costanza, going way too fast. And I said to Steve, will you turn my pages for me for the concert? So Steve comes on after me and starts turning my pages. And I was so nervous, but Steve was there beside me, and he was kind of in a good position. Like, I just thought, if I really have to leave this concert that I can't continue, Steve can come on and play for me. So I still thank you for that, Steve.
No, that's great. Having a kind of a page turner who's a bit of I try to be a rock,
You were.
That's the best, is because I've had experiences with page turners that are just, completely so nervous, more trouble than they're worth, I remember, some of the funnier stories. One gentleman who was quite large wore this long tie, and his tie kept falling on the keys when he would reach over to turn. Or another funny story where there was no one who could read music to turn pages for a chamber music program. So we got this young gal, and I said, just when I nod, turn the page. And no chance to practice or anything. So she started that, and she would look at me like this, you know, straight there, reach over and turn the page, and then I would be nodding, and then she'd slowly turn the page over like that. So, oh boy, there's many good page turning jokes and stories out there, but
I'm sure.
wow.
Steve, you seem to have a lot of music memorized. Like when I watched your video of the Prokofiev, do you memorize music as you go along, just as you're learning? Or what do you do to have such an amazing memory? I mean, that Prokofiev playing that is, I mean, you wouldn't want a page turner for that, because it would be
Right.
difficult. So how do you do memory? Like, is it difficult for you, or do you sort of have a visual memory that you remember the actual page? I just like to know that.
There are a number of ways that, and you know, memory gets harder the older I get. However, I like to think of it as that I'm kind of looking at music from the, you know, inside out or from bottom up, sideways, and so, you know, sort of, so that there's more to actually remember.
If you had a shot at this, Steve, to re-educate an entire generation of musicians, would it be to start with giving them the foundations of that kind of memory?
I think that, well, I think they're great ideas, and every person would have to decide whether or not they'd want to go in that direction. I think, though, for music education, what's really missing out globally is the aspect of improvisation, being creative with music, trying to write. We, you know, since I guess there's pretty much that falling off point around 1920 or so, when we had this big divergence between the creator, you know, like Franz Liszt or Paganini, or who performs other people's music, but also does, most of the time it was his own thing, and the performer. And I have some really, you know, some ideas on why that happened around 1920. But as a result, we have so many young kids out there who are learning to read music, who are learning good hand position and so on, as, you know, as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, but they're not encouraged to explore and make their own sounds, their own melodies up on whatever, you know, the violin or the piano. And I think that's a real shame. That's something we missed out on.
Yeah.
So there's a number of reasons, but again, I think our musicians would be a lot happier and better served if they were to get involved in this aspect of creative music making. So.
Steve, were you just a natural improviser? Is that what you just did from the very beginning, was improvise? That came naturally to you without being told, that you did it early on and comfortable with it and loved doing it?
Pretty much. I think, you know, I had a father who loved to sing the old standards, these tunes of Cole Porter, Jerome Kern, and others, you know. So he loved the fact, since I started by playing by ear as a kid, he loved giving, you know, he loved it when I could actually accompany him on some of these songs. So many hours were spent doing that. He wasn't that interested in my classical playing. My mom, on the other hand, was kind of the engine behind my musical education, and she was more interested in that area. So so I was lucky to be exposed to both. And so yes, I started off with improvising, started off by playing music by ear, and then note reading and piano lessons came later. I also was really interested in my teenage in popular music. So that kind of part, it gave me the impetus to keep exploring that and trying to play these pop songs on the piano and so on. Then finally, I found it was a kind of a good way to make money by playing as a teenager in lounges, cocktail lounges, or restaurants, background music, and that was just because I could make some dough at that. It seemed like a really good thing to do. So.
Oh, Steve. So you had done a variety of things. Adrian, you improvise.
No, not.
Oh,
I mean,
really
look. Okay, wait. So here's the thing. I'm Chinese, right? And I look Chinese. If I meet somebody and they ask me if I speak Chinese, my first question is, do you speak Chinese? Because if they don't speak Chinese, I'm pretty comfortable saying, yeah, I speak Chinese. Now, if you ask me if I improvise, June, I'd say, yeah, I doodle or I do my thing, but in front of Steve Prutsman,
oh yeah.
No, I don't. I don't improvise.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a story. Steve, like, he's from that San Jose story. He brought us to, we were in Mexico together.
That's right.
We were in New York. We played Music Mountain. We were playing in Nevada together, Montreal. Like we toured with Steve, and we got to know Steve really well. And in Mexico, in San Miguel de Allende, we were in this place, this palatial place, this moonlit like dinner banquet thing. And there was a pianist there that went there and was playing jazz and trying to kind of show off and just do his thing. And he started playing some Star Wars and was doing whatever. They brought in some kind of things off some standards. And everybody at this dinner party was like, Steve, you should go and play. Because we had just played one of Steve's jazz compositions for piano quintet. So they knew that Steve really could rock out. And Steve was like, no. He didn't want to do it. He was so humble. He didn't want to do it. But the guy kept goading him on, and there was kind of like a jazz piano battle. And then so Steve was like, okay, fine. So he goes up there and he just started improvising, and he played, and he started taking that guy's themes and turning into something, and then putting in his own. I think you did Star Wars and Star Trek, and you put it together. There was something there that you did, and it suddenly got to this really vulnerable, gorgeous thing. And at the end of it, everybody was dead silent. And then they roared, and it was like a rooftop. They started stomping on the floor, and then the host of the place, remember, Steve, I don't remember, he ran, was like, please, everybody, your enthusiasm is great, but stop stomping on my palatial castle, like my rooftop. But it was just like his chops, like he is you're respected in every single corner of the field. So June, that's the reason. It's a long way of saying, no, I don't improvise.
Oh, come on.
At all.
Well, I'm going to say this. Get back to in-person meetings and concerts, all of you who see Adrian, you've got to ask him to do his hip hop rap routine, and the way you can make stuff up. I just don't get it. That's a real stroke of genius there, man. So
no.
You folks, just ask him to give him a topic, any topic. It can be, I don't know, British Columbia. Okay. Winner, go. And then watch him go. And he'll come up in a split second with the most funny and interesting little rhyming hip hop stuff that, you'll be blown away, folks. I think you're still practicing that, aren't you, Adrian?
No.
You don't do that anymore. No,
I don't do that anymore.
Oh dear, I was going to say do it now, but I guess I won't do it. Ask you now. Oh dear. Well,
now, June, Steve, we're gonna do something here where it's kind of like a watch party, right? So we're now gonna listen to your Prokofiev, and June, you were asking about pedals. You were asking about the grandeur and the memorization of it. Did you want to lead Steve in with any questions so that we can prepare our audience for the Prokofiev?
Well, I'd love to, because Prokofiev is referred to as the composer with steel fingers, isn't he, Steve? I mean, how do you comment on that? I mean, when I watch you play in the video of you doing the Prokofiev, I'm absolutely blown away by the energy that you have to bring to that piece. I mean, it's nonstop.
Mm.
I wonder, first of all, how you maintain a focus that is so energetic. There's not a moment to breathe, at least from my perspective, and how you get a grand view of the whole thing. It's all so busy.
One big lesson I've learned is not try to do too much when you're on the hot seat there for a, kind of a big event like a concerto. Concertos are always big events. Not feel like, wow, now I've got to make it, because that adds another layer of stress. If you can get to the point of saying, I'm just going to play it and enjoy it. I'm not going to try to make anything happen right now. It's all worked into my DNA. That's why I practiced. So I wouldn't have to like try to do something new and great and big and flashy and expressive right here. It's all built in. If I can get to that mindset, I'm a lot better off than, all of a sudden saying, oh my gosh, here comes the big, the big moment, and I've got to do it. Oh, it's got to be bigger. It's got to be greater. It's got to be, I want to make, all of that, because, chances are it's not going to be so successful right then. I always, I remember some of the great speeches of Obama, and thinking, when he went to Berlin and it was 500,000 people there back 8 years ago to speak. He was calm as a cucumber, as they say. And I knew that, wow, it's all written down for him, right? He practiced the speech, he read the speech, he made comments, it's done. All he's got to do is go out there and say it. So rather than at that moment think, oh my gosh, maybe I should say I love Germany. Maybe I should do, all of these different things that come into his mind. No. He just read it. And with, it's kind of a similar thing. With enough preparation, the best thing you can do is just come there and say, I'm going to try to enjoy this, be in the moment, do some deep breathing. Once in a while, if something strikes me as like, wow, that's particularly beautiful, keep it to myself. Don't feel like now I've got to show everybody this. Just say, that's kind of the best attitude. So long-winded response to this, I was really nervous, but it was also incredibly exciting. So a little bit of both for this particular performance.
Love it. This is Prokofiev's third concerto, the first movement. Wow, that was amazing. Hey, Steve, what were you
Thank
thinking
you.
at the end of that? At the end of that first movement?
At the end of that first movement, it's like, it's one down, two to go. You know, I'm trying to remember these competitions, the big ones, which are, you know, Moscow and Brussels, a couple others. You know, you typically have 3 rounds. So the first round, they'll have anywhere from 90 to, I think Tchaikovsky had 140 pianists. So you can see the jury members are going to listen to 140. It goes on for weeks. The first round is basically your etudes, fast stuff. They want to make sure you can play, and then some Bach and maybe a Beethoven or something, whatever, a classical sonata. Second round, you know, down to 40 maybe. You have some other, like a recital program, an hour recital program. And then the third round is commission piece, maybe a Mozart sonata. I think in Belgium, they wanted a Mozart sonata, you know, for the concerto round. And then the concerto. So by this point, the Prokofiev, it's kind of all done. So I'm just like, whoa, one down. And then there might be a little bit of, hey, that one, okay. You know, a little bit of that, you know.
Steve, I have to tell you, I was invited to the competition one year when it was for a singer to Brussels. So they treated me to a week of concerts, and they just really do it up, don't they? I mean, it's
a
on
big
TV stations, it's on radio.
Yeah.
I mean, the crowds are all dressed up to kill, and their guests were invited. I think they started at 8, and at 10 there was a buffet supper that took an hour.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the thing went on till about 1 o'clock in the morning. It's a real event. So you must have been pretty hyped up for the finals, I must say.
I was, and yeah, Belgium is a, you know, interesting country. Yeah, the Queen Elizabeth's competition for Belgium is a big deal.
Yeah.
And they, you know, everyone in, again, it's primarily upper society,
Yes.
and the nobility is involved and all of this. And they love, you know, getting decked out. Everyone wears a tuxedo in the audience. That kind of tells you. And then the lavish buffets and all of this. I had a good time. You know, that particular competition requires that the finalists stay in a castle alone for a week. I mean, all the finalists together, each having their own little piano, a grand piano in their room to practice on. They're fed, and you're not allowed to leave the castle. So that's kind of, again, the mystique. So I had just finished that week inside the what they call it, the chapelle.
Wow.
So it was also this, wow, I get to go to a hotel room tonight, this, you know, or my friend's house. So
so you've chosen Bach for, we're doing Bach for our next piece that you selected for us. Why this piece?
Well, this is, I mean, you know, if I say that the classical music composers I'm most attached to, I would have to say the first place goes to Bach, like for a lot of us. And there's a number of reasons why the similar reasons are for everyone else, why it's the greatest music for me. And this particular suite I had worked on in school and played a number of times, and just grew really fond of it. Though, you know, as you know, I imagine that any of the 6 English suites or French suites, the same, a similar kind of affection would be nurtured with the amount of time I put in on it. So I love the kind of this very slow introduction, opening, and then the fugue that just keeps going and going and going, all under this umbrella of being the prelude for the next 5 movements. It's not particularly well known, but anyway, that's the reason. And I got a good video. I think this is from Korea, and they had televised it, and I got a copy of that. So,
has your interpretation of Bach changed from when you first started to play this in high school to when you played it now?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Everything. Oh, with all great music, we evolve with it, just like great literature. I'm sure if you read a novel you're fond of, you were fond of 20 years ago, and you reread it now, there's new things that pop up. It's the same thing in music. It's not, and I think that's what, as we all continue to mature with music, it's finding new truths. And by truths, I mean that which resonates inside of you. It can be an inflection of a voice, a kind of voicing, an articulation in Bach, maybe a general overall feel. We know these great recordings of past classical performers who may have recorded something when they're 30 and then the same piece when they're 60. Usually gets a little slower, doesn't it? And I don't think it's because the facility is gone. I think it's just kind of the breadth and scope of the piece has evolved. There's a kind of a sense that, well, I can try to sustain this with the slower tempo. We also talk about line a lot more when we get older. And by line, I mean, young performers tend to really enjoy indulging in smaller things at the ends of 2 and 4 bar phrases. They want to make everything, kind of overtly expressive. So they'll indulge here, then they'll go over here and indulge here, and then indulge. And by indulge again, I mean slow down or expand, and then pick it back up the next 2. Well, the problem with that is that the listener starts to drift off a little bit, right? It's the same in speaking voices. If someone is taking their time to share a moment about life, you start to say, okay, yeah, come on, get on with it. So we even though it's very, it's honest music making for someone, more often than not, one of the great kind of new truths, and as I age, is that it's often more beautiful if I don't show it so much. That kind of reflection of how beautiful that moment is. If we keep going through it, then in some ways it's more beautiful to the listener.
Oh.
Anyway, that's a new truth. So anyway, I'm looking forward to rehearing this now.
Oh, great. Perfect. Steve, you know what? I don't know if you were going to say something, but I just hearing the Bach, right? It reminded me of one of the last times I saw you play, which was at the White Lights Festival at Lincoln Center.
Mm.
Do you remember this night you played? And I remember you played a movie music thing where there's this melody that just kind of you made a like echo off, and it was just,
Oh yeah.
what was that called again?
I think that was from a soundtrack to a French film called Diva.
Diva, that's right.
Yeah, I believe so. That was
Steve. I went home and I tried to find it, and I sent you an email. I said, could you record that? Because nobody does it that way. There's piano renditions of that, but nobody does it. So I hope you do record it one of these days.
That's a good idea. Okay.
but Steve, that evening, the Bach and forth, right? Like it just how you brought like you started with this Bach, and then it just started to blossom into these universes. Like it seemed like you were inviting that audience, and that was a large audience, but it really seemed small in this beautiful way of being interconnected, because we felt that you invited us into this room where you have found intricate things that you find beautiful, and you're like, this is a corner of my life. This is a movie I saw maybe when I was a teenager. It was just, but you didn't, it wasn't narrated. It was all told in music. And it just reminded me of that. You know, I love the way you play.
Well, you know what, I love doing those back and forth programs. There were a few of them that swapping out, you know, different pieces, but the premise is that you can play a piece of Bach and then something else, and then a piece of Bach and something else, and so on. And I think, you know, I just heard a wonderful program yesterday with a violist who did a similar kind of thing. And number of folks are trying this idea of juxtaposing the very old with something that's a little newer. What's amazing to me is that in Bach's music, you can find elements. I mean, it's just all there. Bach did not have any concept of what was happening in Uzbekistan at that time, or in South America, or this idiom called jazz that we know so. But at the same time, why is it that in his music, you'll find modalities that are identical to some of those modalities in Near East music? Huh? Why is that? Why do you find in the jigs, for example, this swing of three that's identical to the swing of three in bebop music? These are the kind of parallels, this delight in ornamentation that you'll find with Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, the delight of, you know, turns and swirls and trills and mordents and all this good stuff. Just the fact of having this such extraordinary counterpoint and going into new worlds, right, harmonically. You know, sometimes you listen to Bach's music, some of the, like, thinking the fugue of the last Prelude and Fugue of Book 1, and where that goes into some weird territory, like he was on mushrooms or something when he wrote that. I mean, it's really, and I say, is this really 1720 or whenever, you know? How could he have, because you don't find that kind of daring to exploration of modalities and harmonic juxtapositions. You don't find that in Mozart, or, you know, Haydn, you get a little closer to some craziness, but certainly not to the extent of their predecessor, Bach, you know. So that's, anyway, that was something that was always fascinating to me, and why I liked pairing Bach's music with other, you know, other classical composers and music of oral traditions. So it's something that we all, I think we all get when we hear Bach. It's just how extraordinary the music is.
I was just going to say, what's great is also that you, what you're presenting and offering to us today, we're ending the program with one of your compositions, which really seems to to speak to what you just shared with us, some of those rhyming patterns, some of those roots.
No,
So Steve, this is, could you just tell us again, remind us what this composition is called?
Oh, it's called Dog, which is a piece that was inspired by 70s popular hit, rhythm and blues and a genre called funk, which is very intoxicating type of music. And I wrote it many, many years ago. I've had a lot of fun playing it. It's a blast. It's really hard. So I have to practice it and so on. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it.
I love the piece, Steve. I love it. Whatever you're playing is just, it's just
Oh, yeah.
terrific. Adrian,
Thank
let's
you.
play that. Oh, it was wonderful to be with you. It was a
Thanks,
beautiful
June.
moment.
Adrian, it's a pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you,
Hope to
Steve.
see you again in person.
Well, we're
soon.
gonna we want to have you up in Vancouver as soon as it's safe to do so. You have
Right on.
you have such a rich history with us. You know, when I took on music in the morning, I really did. One of the things I glommed onto was the project that you and June created together, where you came up and you're playing for people that were touched by autism. You and June created something together. I'm 7 to 10 years ago, maybe even more.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a really important
Wow.
thing we have to continue to do.
I have to say it couldn't have happened obviously without June. June was the one who made the contacts, who found out who are the organizations that set, you know, important organizations in Vancouver that help families and those afflicted by autism. Get the hall there, try to get the word out, all of these details that are just, you know, so many when doing something like that. And we had a very good run. Right now I'm just remembering some of the faces of the kids and their families. Why it's so important is that these family, you know, typical children's concerts or family concerts are difficult for families who have kids who have behaviors, who may be stimming or flapping or vocalizing or jumping and so on. So they're not really, unfortunately, welcome to your typical family concert. So what June helped create was these tailored events for families where they can come and enjoy good music so that the families feel like they're getting out. There's a sense of community. They're seeing other families who are similarly challenged by autism. And the kids themselves, or if there's autistic adults, they get a blessing by hearing the music and engaging with the performer. And then, as is always the case, just like what you're saying, Adrian, is that the performers themselves are touched and you know, experience growth as a result of this very unique type of event that you would not be able to get otherwise. So I hope we continue that. I'm looking forward to more Azure concerts up there.
Thanks, Steve, immensely.
Thank you, guys.